Hey, welcome to Soulfish. My name is David. I am super glad you're here. If this is your first time, thank you for coming, and we're glad you're here, and I hope that what you find resonates and is helpful on your journey. If so, please subscribe, like, comment. That really goes for everyone, right? I want to continue the chat we've been having about are you an empath and how to use your gifts. I call this segment removing your rings. This is something I've been teaching for quite a while. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on. When you're an energy sensitive, whether you're an empath, highly sensitive person, HSP, intuitive, you're able to feel energy in different ways, but you're not necessarily being shown quote-unquote messages in some form or fashion. You're still an energy sensitive. And the problem is that you feel all of this stuff. You're taking on this stimulus. So if everything is an electromagnetic field, and as your field interacts with other fields, then you have extra equipment to process that. The problem is that somebody installed this in your system, right? Like a car, right? Like they gave you these extra like booster parts things, and you've been using them unknowingly, but nobody told you how to turn them off. Nobody told you how to use them, how to wield them, how to, when's the appropriate time to dig deep, when not to, all those things. It is a true gift given out of grace, but until you learn to wield it is really a curse. That's how it feels. But it doesn't have to. You weren't given something out of pain. You were given something to help free you. In freeing yourself, you light the way for others. Because you trailblaze in something, you have now laid out a path for someone else to follow. Just like it was done for you. You found paths laid out before you. How amazing is that? That's your role. You're a way shower. You're a seer. Healer. Teacher. I'm not a big fan of trying to label somebody down, particularly into one bucket, because your gifts spring out of need. Your gifts are a product of grace, a product of what flows through you, not of you, what flows through you. And so, for one guy, I counsel. For another guy, I may help move some energy around. Right? For another guy, I help heal spiritually, emotionally, work with in that way. Right? I may recommend herbs, these things, balms, herbs, infused oils to help in that process, to help the body to release. So it works backwards, right? Spirit, mind, body manifests final. Here, dude, final sign. Don't you get it? And if you can work it backwards, help loosen up that body back, so then you've already removed the story from the mind, and then you're already working on what created the problem from the beginning in your spirit, right? So when you're feeling through this process, and it's been a struggle because it creates a lot of ups and downs, right? A lot of ping pong. It's hard because your tentacles are out. And as you create more space in you, as you put yourself further out to feel, to try to understand, to be directed is really what you're trying to do, whether you're conscious of it or not, is you're really trying to say, I want to be told what to do. And you're just not sure how to do that, and you can. So, when you're feeling all of this stuff, very hard to know where you begin and end. And that's everyone's problem, right when they're moving forward in this, when they start to realize that whatever is next, I'm willing to go for, because it can't be worse than what I've already been through, right? That's the That's the real moment when change begins, is when you have that going on inside you. So, I call it rings. And these rings in you are things that you generate daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. Deep-rooted problems that go back to when you were 4 years old and this happened to you, and that you've carried all this time forward. These rings create in you a certain vibration, a certain pattern. In a lot of cases, these rings are so strong that it makes in you the opposite. In other words, because this happened to me, I will never do that to another person. So therefore I act and respond in this way, right? It's an opposing force. These were powerful, impactful events that now have a trigger in you. So I want you to first think about the reason for the event. The event could have been based on who and what you are, necessary for you to put you on a trajectory in an opposite direction from what you experienced. The problem is that that's what it was supposed to do. But then we held on to it because it obviously was so impactful, so hurtful, so whatever, right? Deeply hurtful. That we then carry that pain, not the information, not the repulsion, in other words, the actual benefit from that terrible whatever, was this repulsion from that, which put you on the opposite trajectory. But then we carry that pain deeply. So, and this is every human, right? So what happens is big and small rings are created like a tree, okay? And these are part of your electromagnetic field. And people, when you hear people talk about auras, and we have different layers of auras, right? Our etheric body, right? So when you think about this, these things create an electromagnetic disturbance in your field. Think of it like when we've been talking about our numbers, right? So, 0 to 10, 0 to 5, let's say, and on the plus side, and then 0 to 5 on the negative side. And all of these are in your field all the time. And this, in addition to all of those 7 hermetic laws and how that operates against or with your energy field, your electromagnetic field. So, when your field is interlapping all these other fields, very hard for you to tell where you begin and end. And then if you start to expand that field, which is what a lot of people do instead of, I don't want to say contract because this isn't a defense play, but let's just say pull in a little bit, okay? Then let's just say, as you're pulling in on this, then your information becomes more intense, yes, but it also becomes more clear. It's almost counterintuitive to do this. Instead, everybody kind of spreads out, which then increases the problem. Because as you span out, you're creating more open space in your electromagnetic field. In other words, it becomes weaker for stronger electromagnetic forces in the other field to, I'm going to say, take over in that space, take over in that level. So when you're conscious of this, what you want to start doing, in other words, to get to the path of how do you feel what you feel like when either you're spread out too far or it's repetitive in you, this feeling of despair, sadness, hopelessness, where, from an energetic perspective, because you're picking up all of this stuff, you then apply it to yourself. That's why your brain is an instrument of this place, and that's what gets mixed up, because you feel this stuff and then your brain says, oh, well, because you're feeling it, it's got to be yours, because it's logic. Your brain is about logic. Your brain says, hey, there's no way in hell you're feeling something else that isn't part of your body. this energy body that I'm connected to. In other words, and he says, so therefore it must be here. It must be something here. It must be you here. And that's the trick of it. And so it's not yours. It's hard to tell what's yours or not. And you can say to me, well, I understand that, David. I understand. Intellectually, I understand that. And I know you do. But until you remove these rings, you never really have that knowing. And that's a deep knowing, right? That's when you mix your mind with your feeling side. That's a real understanding. And that's what I'm talking about. So intellectually, I know you get it. But have you experienced it? Have you been there? This is what we're going to talk about right now. You got to remove these rings. So, how does it work? What I want you to try to do specifically is on this most outer ring. Step 1, I want you to, over the next 5 days, take away as much as you can. Maybe a silly example, but take Facebook or social media, that kind of stuff, where you're interacting in a way where there's a lot of conflict, a lot of drama, a lot of judgment. What if you, for the next 5 days, just took a hiatus from that? What if you just said, hey man, I'm not going to participate? News. You don't need to start your day off listening to that. You woke up, your lights cut on. When you opened your refrigerator, there was food there. Your bank account seems to still work. Your car started up. Your kids smile at you. Don't worry about what else is going on in the world. Now, if something important happens, of course you're going to hear about it. They're going to be chit-chatting about it everywhere. So, of course you don't want to be an idiot. You're going to plug in at that time. But why bring on what you already know exists right now more onto yourself? Just give it 5 days. I'm saying 5 days. A lot of us, me included, have deep feelings. This kind of like there's a disturbance in the force, right? And so I seek out in the news and say, wow, was there an earthquake? Because it's a mass, right? Not small, something. And I seek out to see, hey, what could it have been? Well, gosh, what can it be? You've got millions and millions of people dispersed all over the world from war and all sorts of stuff, right? What mass? Is it because I'm feeling something with 5,000 people or 50,000 people, 5 million? It all is suffering, and whether it was one guy or 50 billion of them, it's still awful. And so the point is, I'm not sure yet. But if I go out and seek out this new stuff, and then I'm finding what I think is out there anyway, right? But then it's not bringing me up in any fashion. It's not teaching me anything new. It's more of like, it's not distraction even, right? It's more of, you can't justify, yeah, I feel crummy because I'm feeling all of these things. Yeah, part of the collective, yes. But it's not specific. And if it's not specific, if it's something you can't work with, right, apply, then it's something that for right now isn't helping you to move forward. Drop it. Just for 5 days and see. So imagine this. You drop this social media stuff where it's a lot of conflict, drama, that kind of vibe. You're dropping the news, which is a lot of negativity, right? This is all part of your first ring. And you're doing this in over 5 days, okay? Here's why. So whatever else you can add to that outside ring, this is like super low-hanging fruit, easy stuff to do. For example, I know it may take you 20 minutes longer to get home, but if you know that if you're leaving in this window of time and that's just going to stress you out from work, between, leaving work and getting home and you're rushing around or whatever. And this used to be my life up north, so I understand this kind of mentality of kind of getting to the train on time or whatever, but I'm saying even if it takes you a half an hour more each day, if you were able to leave and arrive, I'm saying leave your work in a way and then also arrive at home in a more peaceful state, in a more balanced condition, how would your life improve? Wouldn't you be more in the mood to do something after you got home? Whether it was to make a good dinner this time, or whether it meant more than that, let's go out and just walk in the park. In other words, do something about living beyond just coming home from work and then deflating out in front of the TV or bed or whatever, right? This is your gift. This is a gift given for you because you have the potential to wield it. So step 2 is after you, well, let me go back. So at the end of step 1, 5 days later, 6 days later, here's what I want you to do. Measure it. You know, you started this process on a scale of 0 to 5. You started this today, day 1 of 5. You cut the stuff out. You felt like you started as a 2. Write it down. Tomorrow, at the end of the day, write down a paragraph and just say, measure it. Hey, I feel a little better today than I did yesterday. I'm not asking you to quantify it. I'm not asking you to be Niels Bohr, right? I'm saying, you know how you feel right now. You quantify it. I don't care. Call it A through F. Whatever makes sense for you in your chart of where you know that at this level I'm awesome and at this level I feel horrible. You whatever that is to you. 0 to 5 on the plus side and 0 to 5 on the negative side. Whatever. But whatever you choose, be clear about it. Write it down. Each day, at the end of the day, just say, hey, here's how I'm feeling about things. Very briefly. This isn't vent time and this isn't draw everything out. You know, day 1 or 2, you may be feeling a little bit of withdrawal because you've relied on that stuff to eat up a lot of time. It's a lot of distraction. Whatever. So now you're starting to work through that. So you're writing more, you're reading more, you're walking more, you're doing other things, cooking more, doing other things, like doing something instead of sitting and being fed stuff, right? It changes things. So after the day 5, you may say, hey, I was a 2 and now I'm a 3. And that's all you're looking for. I was a 2 and now I'm a 2.5. My point is, you will have changed. And I think you will recognize it if you're aware. And the point of this exercise is something material because this is the practice to you to remove rings. Rings you created 2 hours ago and the rings you created 2 years ago and longer. You have to go through this process. You have to face the ring, isolate it, and then measure it and say, well, what can I do here? You're trying to get to the root cause. Everyone's so focused on symptoms or trying to block symptoms or insulate themselves from the symptoms, right? I'm not going to ever face the bad because I only want to do the good. I don't like how that makes me feel. Well, I mean, I'm sorry, but man, you were given the good stuff so that you could face the bad stuff and transmute it. You know, you have 2 wolves in you, right? Which wolf, is the strongest, is the one you feed the most. You're supposed to bring balance. And that means all of it. You have to look at all of it. If you're a seer, a lot of the problems in our gifts is that we see what comes. We see how someone is before they've shown it, right? And so we project, may be the wrong word, anticipate, respond as if it's already happened even though it hasn't. So, and that's a travesty, because at any moment someone can choose to feed which wolf, right? And so even though we see that they feed the wolf 80% of the time that we're, on the one side versus the other, it doesn't mean that we don't experience the 20% based on the fact of what we're projecting out, right? So you have power. You're an electromagnetic field. Whether you are aware, conscious of the 7 laws that govern this place, they are governing this place. And you are participating willingly or unwillingly in that dance. And so, in this case, as you drop rings, your law of attraction, because of all of these things, improve and is sustainable. The problem with the New Ageism that we've been chatting about is that it's like we said, it's like looking at one ingredient in a cake and then putting just sugar into the oven and then, 45 minutes later you pull it out and it's still sugar, melted sugar. And you're like, well, where's my cake? Well, there was all these other ingredients going on. That's law of attraction. All these other 7 laws have to be, clicked off in, and then law of attraction, and I'm talking about real law of attraction, is sustainable. But why? Because it's your beingness and what you're attracting. So think about that. If your electromagnetic field is a 5 out of a 10 on the plus side, then you're only attracting things that are around a 5 out of a 10, good and bad. And because you're averaging a 5, let's say. And of course, we're simplifying this just because, makes sense? So if that's the case, then, if a guy is averaging a -1, then his good and bad times still feel very low, very not much fun compared to your good and bad times. Why? Because of law of attraction, because that's the end result of what's going on. So, in order for you to feel yourself, I want you to start removing these rings. So after a week, you'll be able to see that you also have control in this. That you can have a practice, a daily spiritual practice, not based on dolphins and crystals and whatever else, bubbles of craziness, but a true spiritual practice with understanding, true understanding in you that allows you to move yourself forward, that allows you to continue to remove these rings, to find yourself more and more and more. And just like the esoteric teachings say, that get watered down by everyone, is that as you reach that inside point, that 1, I've labeled as 1 on this chart, as you reach that inside point, that's when you really connect into what they call your higher self, what I call the second you. So in the esoteric teaching, it's when the 1 shall become 2 and the 2 becomes 1, then you'll know, and there's a whole bunch of stuff associated with that, but I'm oversimplifying. But it's so true. And that's when you connect. That's your bridge. And when you're in that place, that's when you are truly connected to spirit. And that's when you're directed and you get the downloads you need to move forward in your day. And that's what makes it worth it. It makes it so worth it than what you're experiencing right now. But this is the work part. This is the tough part. And everybody says, yeah, I get it. Because intellectually, this isn't, it's like the Tao says, the way is not complicated. Everybody hits the side paths, right? This isn't complicated. But it's somehow hard to do. So, this is the key to it all. This key unlocks everything for you. I hope this has been helpful, and until next time, much love.